No, time out.
What a fucking
So
surprise.
that's kind of like if you take your kids over to somebody else's house and they're really good.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. It's got nothing to do. It's got nothing to do with the fact that I was.
Judah, get the damn mic there. Judah, get the damn mic there. Keith, Judah, hey, I'm very curious of what you have to say. Will you consider putting your mic in front of you? And he does it now. Oh, I guess we're going hot here.
Yep.
Mics are going hot.
Mics-
Fantastic.
mics
Scotty
are-
Moe, Keith Smith in the house.
Hey.
We'll get the cameras on here shortly. It's Real Talk with Keith Smith on a Wednesday. Folks have been telling me they've been enjoying the conversation off mic. Occasionally it's a little racy. Occasionally we have no idea the mics are actually even on. Occasionally we're talking about our attire as we go to the curb in the morning with a cup of coffee in our hand. Keith Smith gave us a visual that I'll never be able to get out of my head.
And generally we talk about what we don't know. No, I'm only kidding.
That's so true. Scotty Moe's in the house. It's a Wednesday of Ross Mortgage. We get loan officers watching this program often when Scotty Moe's on the house. Any of the LOs that are watching that want to offer some questions or share some perspective with Scotty Moe, I love that roundabout conversation. We can do that. Maybe we get a little Johnny Snow in the mix today.
Hey, what is Jon Snow up to
Jon
today?
Snow, if you're watching, poke your head out and say, hey. One of my favorite LOs is Jon Snow, who goes to the gym and posts
Crushing it.
gains.
Yeah.
His gains. Jon Snow crushing it in life. Keith Smith's crushing it in life. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm sipping my coffee and then sitting back and relaxing and listening to the fellas chat.
Yeah, this is fellas. We're like at the barbershop.
We're at the barbershop.
One of these days, I would love to do this. I was thinking about doing this for the I Love Stevo show. I'd love to
We're
get
not bringing a barber in to cut our
I'd
hair.
love to get a barber on air, cutting our hair while we're doing the show. The barber would get some props. We could highlight where the barber's doing their work. They'd get some props. We get a haircut. I'd love to do that. Don't you hate waiting for a haircut? Do you wait?
It's a thing. Do you like set up an appointment where you just go to the
No,
barber?
I just go in, and I got two guys that I go into, and I
Yeah,
wait
yeah.
for one of two guys,
Yeah, yeah.
and it takes often 45 minutes to
Oh, yeah.
wait.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 20 minutes to
And
drive
then you
there.
kind of like peek in the window and see if how many people are in there and.
I'll
When do you-
leave the shop.
When do
I'm hesitant to say where I go
Yeah. Got
I'm
it.
very hesitant.
Got it.
because I don't want to.
Well, and then there'll be more people.
I'm
there.
very selfish. Yes,
Then there'll
very
be-
selfish. And then I'd be waiting longer. It's really all about me here, Keith.
Yeah.
What happened to the old school?
You can relate.
What happened to the old
get
school
it.
barracks place?
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's called His.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just celebrated their 100-year anniversary.
Okay.
My client, one of my clients owns that.
Okay.
It's yeah.
What was it before? What was it originally called?
Staples.
Staples Barbershop.
Yeah.
For like generations
Yeah,
and
or-
generations and generations.
Legitimately just celebrated their 100-year anniversary. You know what? This conversation people would appreciate. Once you get the cameras on, we can start the intro, and I want to continue this conversation because we both have some insight into Staples and into his barbershop and barracks, and folks just love talking about this.
Yeah, we can bring somebody in. We can surely finagle that.
That's a great idea. Judah Whitcower, let's rock and roll.
I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll finagle it.
Well, your
Right on the
sister.
Well, we'll get somebody from the barber.
Yeah.
Our barbershop. Yeah. I know people. I was going to say I got a guy, but she's actually a female, so I got a female.
That's your sister.
No, but at the barber, I got a
Oh,
female.
understood. Okay. I like that we're doing this now. Judah Whitcower. This chemistry's working. Yeah.
We're not supposed to be talking now.
It's a Wednesday morning, guys. It's Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. It's a pleasure to connect with you guys on a show presented by Ross Mortgage and our good buddy, Scotty Moe, Scott Morris. Scott Morris, guys, making dreams come true at Ross Mortgage with financing houses and investment properties. Judah Whitcower is our director. We've been talking barbershop. It's like barbershop talk. That's kind of what the show is. The show is,
I was thinking more along the bar, but that's okay. Barbershop works too.
yeah, it's the bar meets the
Yeah.
coffee shop meets the barber shop. Real estate is part of the foundation, but really what we like to do is celebrate and champion Central Virginia.
So this is show 444.
Oh.
And you would think I would know after 444 shows when the director starts doing the countdown, I'm supposed to shut up. So I apologize, Mr. Director, for over-speaking your intro.
What? No, the call to action was quiet on the set. That was the call to action.
Yeah.
Your daughter would be disappointed, your oldest.
My oldest would be very disappointed.
Yeah.
I would be scolded for
She
that.
would chastise you. Let's get Scotty Moe in the mix. Scotty Moe,
What's going on?
one of the few people that come on the set that can challenge Keith and I for good hair. Scott's hair is great.
Thank you.
He's got
Thank you.
fantastic hair. Where do you get yours cut, my friend?
There's a young lady in Culpeper, Jeannie Ventura, who has her own salon, Ventura Hair. I think it's just for Ventura Hair or something like that she's called it now. But I've been going to her for years.
She's great. Yeah.
So do you really want to do this barber thing?
That would be great.
We can make that happen.
Here's the thing, is I'm very particular with how my hair is cut.
So you would have to have your person come.
I almost would.
Okay, then I am.
Who is your person? And Scott, would you get yours cut?
Yeah.
But yours is...
No, I'm sorry.
Yours is more of a custom job.
This is a realistic.
It's not like a custom.
It's not a high-end tie.
All right,
it's not a fade.
All right. Well, so for years and years and
This
years...
is a real estate show after all.
His is a scissors cut.
I was going to... gosh, what's the name of the place? It's over there where ACAC is.
Chung's?
Chung's,
Yeah.
Chung's crushed it. I
Yeah.
love the place. People love
Because
everything
you
about
like the
it.
hot cloth.
Yeah.
the shave.
I want the hot towel, like the kung fu massage at the end, like the whole thing.
I'm pretty sure we just offended somebody.
No, they actually do that. It's not time.
Go get your hair cut.
You
Come
took
back
it
and
too
talk to me.
far.
I took it.
Scott is right.
So-
They karate chop your shoulders.
And
Got it.
and so when I was in Japan, that's like that's a
thing.
bunch
That's
of
the thing.
yeah, 100%. And so, anyways, maybe I'm strong. Maybe on what I get. I've had some like bad haircut, but I mean, whoever's you're bringing on the show,
We've all had bad
Yeah.
Why'd you leave Chunks?
Just the same reason you do it, convenience. It just got to be.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Like that's why do you go get your oil change someplace or do all?
I've been
do
trying to
all,
get a haircut for a week.
So
and
much
I've been poking
of what
into because I go to his, and I was poking in. There's like 18 people
course.
waiting, and then I kind
You don't
of.
want to wait. So here's the question. I talked about this on the I Love Sivo show. I think this is a market for a mobile barber, where a mobile barber that comes to you can charge a premium versus a barber where you go to them and have to wait. I think we are all very busy people and time is precious. It's a commodity. So we'd pay a premium if someone came to us to cut our hair. Would we not?
100%.
If someone came to our office to cut our hair and we didn't have to wait, I'd pay a premium.
Yeah, but
What would be the cost, you think, of that number?
yeah,
What's
well-
the number?
well-
See, the big thing for them is the time and turnover is. I mean,
and
it
I'm
would be an
not so
expensive haircut.
sure.
They
the
would have to,
licensing.
unless they stacked appointments based on geographical territory.
So I have to ask my
Like
system.
downtown, I do downtowns on Tuesday.
I'll have to ask my system because I know with like my real estate license, we have to have a physical address attached to it.
Well, no, mobile barber is a thing.
Is it a thing?
Yeah, it's a
Look at
legit
that.
profession. There's
Didn't know.
mobile barbering. It's a legit profession.
Did not
what
know
would
it.
be the number you would pay? And then we'll go to real estate. Just out of
I think
curiosity.
the number that they would have to charge would have to be like $150.
It's
Yeah.
got to be at least 2 times what you would pay at a
Well,
bar.
what do you pay at his?
With tip and all, about $30.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, so
I'm saying 5x that. I'm saying like
5 times
I'm saying
that?
I would not pay.
$150.
I would not pay $150.
Yeah.
Okay,
no.
well think
Yeah.
about it. If you're the guy cutting his hair, all right, you've got
I'd get
to
you to
come
cut my
here,
hair before I did
get
that.
stuck in traffic, cost of the vehicle, cost of mileage, gas, transportation, getting from appointment to appointment. How many appointments can you fit inside of your day traveling from spot to spot versus having a location where people sit up and sit in a line from 10 a.m. till
But then you
6
got to look
p.m.?
at it the other side from the vendor side. Where does that math work out? Where's the break even for it and all that stuff? But that's so we used to have.
It's Jamie Turner, the Central Virginia real estate market. There's no inventory, so go get a good kung fu massage and haircut combo to alleviate the pain of this lack of inventory. Jamie Turner, that's hilarious.
Well, Jamie, you just did my slides. We're done.
That's
Anybody
the show.
wanna talk about
I
something else?
would pay somewhere between $50 and $75 for someone to come to me. I'm at $30 right now with my guy.
I don't
It's a
think
hell of a job.
you could do it. I don't think they could.
If you stacked them, where you said Tuesdays were downtown, and I would only cut hair downtown, and you could go from office to
So
office
what you do is
downtown.
you go buy an old food truck.
No, I wouldn't even do it. I'd ride a bicycle places or take my car places. I would say downtown. I'd go to the Macklin building. I'd go to the Code building. I'd go to the Enterprise building. I'd go to the SNL building. I'd go to the old Monticello Hotel and be like, if I
Is
put
this
on
a new
social
profession
media.
for you? Is this what you're going to do?
No, I'm just saying. I think someone could do this and make $100,000. I think you'd have to work your ass off.
Yeah,
but I think
well.
someone could do this and make $100,000.
Pretty sure most people that make $100,000 work their ass off. So
Oh, no question.
yeah.
No question. No question.
Speaking of,
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah, well, we talked about this. Jamie Turner, you're going to appreciate this. So Jamie Turner is this guy, defense sector. Jamie Turner is repping the Pep in Culpeper, bought a sweet spot in Culpeper, like a really sweet spot. Jamie, we were talking about this yesterday on the show. The total direct and indirect regional economic impact from the defense sector in 2021 accounted to $1.2 billion. This is the second largest sector in Central Virginia from economic impact. UVA number one at $6 billion a year.
So when I talk about the alphabets, that's what I'm talking about.
We gave you props yesterday
Thank
on
you.
the show.
Thank you,
Literally
thank you.
said your name and the alphabets. Why don't you give a sizzle reel on this and how it could impact Central Virginia? And I'll start by saying this. Scott Morris, the impact of the defense sector in Central Virginia and the Charlottesville area is $1.2 billion in 2021, according to a UVA study. What do you make of this?
So that's one of the things I've talked about us being recession resistant, if not recession proof, is the fact that so much of the money in this area comes from the alphabets, meaning the DIA, the NGIC, National Ground Intelligence Center, Defense Intelligence Agency, and then the other one that is huge here in Charlottesville, the University of Virginia. And we're also supported by multiple colleges in Richmond, Fredericksburg, Mary Washington, Northern Virginia, and Northern Virginia is also stacked with government-funded money. So that's part of what keeps our income base so high, and the fact that when faced huge manufacturing layoffs or tech industry and bank struggles, we are in an area that even if you go back to 2008, 2009, 2010, did not suffer as much as the rest of the country.
Well said, Scott Morris. Scott Morris, guys, Ross Mortgage. 7,000, what was the number, Scott?
7,347.
7,347 jobs, 618 million, Keith, in labor income, 831 million in value-added income, and 1.2 billion in economic output from the defense sector in the Charlottesville region in 2021, according to the Weldon Cooper study. Good God.
So when you talk about those 7,347 jobs, there is a small fraction of them that are attached to this area, but they may not actually live in this area. But of that 7,347, that's an average income base. I guessed 100. In the report, it says 104,000. That actually equates to incomes that are received and spent and executed and taxed in the community of just under $800 million alone.
So what I would like Weldon Cooper to do is what Housing Virginia did in 2015 and do a white paper on the impact of new construction on the local economy and local governments, because you'll find, because they did in 2015 coming out of the time of great unpleasantness, much like the indirect and direct costs, when you talk to local jurisdictions or local elected officials, they think housing has a negative impact on the local economy, and that is not the case. So, but these two are tied together, right? So, if you don't mind,
I think real estate may be three here. I thought, and still, you guys are incredibly impactful. I thought real estate was two, Central Virginia.
That's interesting.
Yeah, real estate's three. But it makes sense because we learned from Dr. Lisa Sturtevant that real estate was number two in the Commonwealth from economic impact. Defense spending was number one.
Yeah.
So that would then make sense.
No, local government. So they lumped everything
they
together.
call it government? It wasn't
they
defense
lumped
sector?
everything
It
together.
was government.
Government, defense, all
Okay.
that kind. Anything that's had a government title to it was all lumped into one thing. But you're 100% right. Well, it's interesting because the slide I did for today, CAR put out its first quarter report about a month and 3 days late.
No comment. We're going to take the high road.
We're going to take the high road on that. So what I did just quickly this morning, and this ties into this, if you don't mind putting slide one up, Judah, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir. So if you take a look, I just broke down, this is Albemarle County, the end of the first quarter and the end of April. This is dollar volume. Detached, no new construction is up $55,000, 11% from the end of last month to now. So everything that is closed now is up 11%. New construction about 6%, 49 grand. The big winner is attached. No new construction is up 29%, and attached new construction is kind of flat, right around 1%. I think that's really a volume issue on that one. They're still trying to build stuff out of the ground. But look, if you're doing six figures, what are you affording? You're affording a $600,000-$700,000 house, right? What kind? What?
I mean,
if I'm working,
let's unpack that a little bit.
Please.
So if you were single income, and when we say six figures or household, like you're the only provider, and your partner is
stay-at-home parent.
Stay-at-home parent.
My household.
You're probably in the $400,000 range.
In today's interest rate.
Yeah. If we're got a couple digits in front of that six figure, and or there's multiple incomes, then you're in $600,000-$700,000.
So this topic is resonating with people. This Virginia business story is fantastic. It has not been reported on by any other media outlet. So you and I and Keith are talking about something that people care about because other people have not unpacked this yet. Of the 7,347 jobs in the defense sector in the Charlottesville region, the average salary, according to this article, is $104,000. Okay, so a lot of folks are asking questions. This one from Albert Graves in Crozet. He says, Scott, and Scott knows a lot about this, how many of those hires at these agencies are local hires? Aren't most of their employees recruited from DC, Quantico, FBI, DOJ, and the military academies? Basically, he's saying these are folks from outside the area coming in with big salaries and taking up real estate.
Well, I think you got two parts of it. You got folks that are still in the service, so they're not going to be quote unquote big salaries. But there's folks that get out of the service, take their talents, take their top secret level 1, 2, 3, whatever they are on it, and their work, and come here and get these huge salaries. I think that's what you're seeing.
Yes and no. I'd say that some of what you see. All right, so let's to the point of the question. Sure, they are going to be people who are brought into the area, but at the same time, how many people are qualified for the positions locally in the area, knowledgeable about the employment and applying for the work? That's a question all of its own. I mean, it's a niche part of the ecosystem to begin with. Most of these people are carrying some form of security clearance from secret up to some higher form of TS, and TS being top secret based on what they're doing inside of the community. There's multiple contractors. The Buffalo Group is a huge one where there's intelligence analysts done, and then you've got a variety of things that are done there.
And they're all at North Fork, right?
They do a lot of background checks there. They do some. So now the National Ground Intelligence Center actually has a hotline if you're based overseas and you're deployed somewhere, where you can pick up the phone at one of the MWR facilities, Morale, Warfare, Recreation, and contact. You call a local 434 number. You get a dispatcher that picks up like it's 1962.
Yeah.
Says, "Hey, how can I help you?"
What's wrong with 1962?
There's nothing
He
wrong
knows
with
a lot about this.
it's a reference. And then you say, you're making a cost-free call, and they're not plugging wires like they did back in the day, but whatever they're doing, they're connecting you to the local number that you're trying to get in contact with.
It's like the Netflix show The Night Watchman or The Night Watcher. Have you seen that on Netflix? It's a limited series. It's damn good. He's in the basement of the White House, and he takes phone calls and dispatches them.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So they've got something. They've got a somebody that does that inside of NGIC for our troops around the world. But that's like a job inside of like this 400 people who are doing different things, and through multiple contractors and actual things.
What's more interesting about this? They're growing, right? They're building. They're expanding their facility there. This isn't going to be one of these things that are going to get shut down and come out of our region. I mean, it's just going to continue to grow. That's super interesting. I did not know that slid up to number 2. That's a big number.
Neil Williamson says he's watching President Free Enterprise Forum. For what it's worth, the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors will receive this report in their meeting this afternoon. Mm-hmm. So this is being presented to the people running a $550 million jurisdictional budget this afternoon. Jamie Turner and Culpeper. Culpeper's a great spot.
Does that mean look out if you're employed there? They're trying to figure out a new way to tax you?
Maybe. Jamie Turner says my neighborhood is majority fed intel, most of which can't really tell you what they do.
Sure.
His neighborhood in Culpeper strategically positioned because he occasionally has to go to Northern Virginia.
Sure.
And this is a high dollar neighborhood there. I mean, you know the neighborhood in Culpeper over there. So I don't know. I encourage anyone to check out Virginia Business. The headline's called Under the Radar, Charlottesville Defense Sector Has Stealthy Presence, Big Impact. I would love to see the legacy media unpack this study as well, because a $1.2 billion yearly impact, at least as of 2021, according to this study, is pretty damn significant.
Well, you've been talking about this forever on the show, right? You know, the high-tech jobs that are coming in here. This is a huge number, right? This is a lot more than we were talking 100, 200 employees.
I just never realized it was this big. I knew,
I agree.
because especially learning from Scott, doing
Have
the
you
show
ever
for a
been
while.
on, you want to just get a feeling of it? Be in the rush hour, in the work in, work out traffic going through that stoplight area right there. It's a huge choke point for people who make
And they're all coming back because during COVID they were away. Because I know I talked to Trevor Howard all the time.
Trevor
Daniels, thank
Yeah.
you. Trevor Daniels. Got the wrong Trevor. Sorry, Trevor. Talked to Trevor Daniels all the time. You know, they're all going back into the office now. So back to that folks come in and out. But, you know, to the point here, so I just took a look at, you know, the dollar value, just single family detached, no new construction in Albemarle County. You know, the median sales price this last month in April was $560. So at $560, what do you think the family income needs to be on that? Rough back of the envelope. I mean, it's a little bit above what we're talking about right here, but if we have two folks working, you know, that's kind of the buyer profile. Would you not agree?
I do agree.
There you go.
This comment right here, and let's unpack this comment. I slightly disagree with you here, Albert Graves. Slightly disagree with you. He says, so if a majority of these employees do not come from the local area, they are not really contributing to the local economy.
Do they live here now?
That's what I'm saying. They live here now.
Where's
So I
the
think
money?
maybe there had to be a clarification.
Are we talking about migrant workers who are lining up at Western Union and sending all their money back to their home country? Or are we talking about people who are eating at our local restaurants, paying local taxes, and spending money at Target?
So let's try it a different
Yeah,
way.
he then says this. Scott just said on the show that a majority of the employees commute here and don't live here.
No, I didn't say that.
I think here's what it is folks are coming new to the area with their $104,000 average salary, and then they're setting up shop here. Are they working here 365? No. Are they having to move? Are they having to travel for their job because they're in the intelligence business? Most likely. But they are living here and paying taxes on
Yeah,
most
well, that's
that
what
they
they're
own.
doing. They're moving from different areas. They're
Yeah.
coming in here. It goes back to, you know, all the other companies that we have here, Apex being one of them, right? That's what's happening. They're recruiting people in that world. It's a little bit different. In this world, you've got to have your TS clearance really just to get past the front door.
Past the front door.
But
Yeah.
but once that happens, that's what folks are doing. They're coming out of the service, which is a huge percentage of them, right? So they're relocating from someplace else. We're getting a phone call. You're getting a phone call. Hey, I got a VA loan. Let's go ahead and buy a home. So I think that's what's going on. And back to my comment in the conversation I had with a couple of guys or folks that work there, they're all back there. So they can't like work from Nelson County in their basement with their high-speed internet anymore. They physically need to go into the shop.
But I want to jump back to this point about commuting to the area.
Yeah.
There's a huge percentage of people who work at the university, who is another huge driver.
Lives
Where
on
do they
the
live?
other- the other side of the
Fluvanna, Madison,
Everywhere.
Yeah. It's such a bizarre, seem like just out of touch comment to make as far as for the people who are working. They can't afford to buy in the city of Charlottesville. We already talked about that and that's your police, fire, nurses, teachers, for the most part, unless they've been there for 20 years. Your new employees aren't coming into the area making affordable purchases. They're purchasing in the outskirts and they're commuting into the area to begin with.
Carly Wagner watching the program.
Hey,
Keller
Carly.
Williams, Alliance's finest. And we'll get to the Q1 report that folks are asking us to unpack. Carly Wagner is saying that from her experience, the folks are here. Carly Wagner says, I'm going to read her comment specific. Carly, we like when you watch the show. These folks are buying homes in the area and relocating their families and spending here, so that's a huge contribution to the local economy. She also says, all the folks I know that work in this area live in this area.
Well, that's the term direct and indirect, and that was to my comment about the housing impact. So there's direct and indirect expenses on that, or expenditures, I should say, that they're going ahead and do that. And
what do you think of this comment from Lonnie Murray? And this is Lonnie Murray who's making a comment as a citizen, just as a citizen. He says people relocating don't necessarily increase the tax base. Business relocating does. When people relocate, they create infrastructure demands, and the taxes on real estate are less than the average cost of those infrastructure demands.
So that was to my comment about let's do a Weldon Cooper reboot of the 2015 white paper. So go ahead and you can Google it. It's Housing Virginia, its impact on local governments and economies white paper, and it's pretty well done. But it's 2014 data. It's not current data. I would love Weldon Cooper to go ahead and do that and find out, does it really do that? Does it really have these impacts directly to it? And usually it goes, I had this conversation yesterday with a couple of Fulvana County Board of Supervisors. So there's as far as direct dollars to jurisdictions, to counties, it kind of depends on where your appraised value or your assessed value is, right? How much money you're contributing and so forth and so on into it. But I would love, there should be a formal white paper on that.
I need to understand more of this. Lonnie, I'd love to unpack your comment, Lonnie. I love when you watch the show, Lonnie, because you're so knowledgeable.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is...
Help me understand what he's saying here.
Yeah, so your next question?
Yeah, no, I want you.
Yeah, so I think what he's saying, this is what most people say, is that more is not better. As far as the impact goes on the roads, water, schools, the typical, I'll just use the term NIMBY because that's usually what it is, folks to not want to have more development there, which is, I get it, I understand it. A white paper saying, okay, does this really do that would be helpful. So instead of a couple of folks talking at a microphone, it's actual Weldon Cooper doing the data for it. But the reality of it is you've got 7,000 jobs here, or people that are making $100,000 plus, which according to Scott is, let's say, a $450 purchase in today's environment. Probably they have two folks working, which means they're closer to a $500 or $650 or whatever that number is purchase, and all that's going to do is drive up the prices of everything without getting the inventory, which was a word that I thought we weren't going to talk about again when we continue to do it on that. So I don't know if I unpacked it good enough.
No, I think you did unpack it. So Warrior AG, Albert Graves, and Lonnie Murray, a little, they're asking good questions about the study. Sure. We're going to have the study, well, we're not presenting it, but the study will be presented to the Board of Supervisors this afternoon. So we'll see how they unpack it. This comment from Mr. Graves.
Is it going to be a presentation, or is it just going to be a question for Neil? Is it going to be a presentation or just in their package? There's a difference.
That's a great question. Neil Williamson, can you offer some insight into that? What kind of presentation will this Weldon Cooper Center study on the defense sector, what kind of presentation will it be for the Board of Supervisors? Scott, what's on the mind over there? I see the wheels turning.
I'm dealing with some in terms of and I'm also curious. So
Fed
deal. Expected to raise interest rates 1/4 point. We got some good things happening in the mortgage-backed securities market today. So pricing's improving, but at the same time, kind of wonder, is there an okey doke here? Do we get to 2 o'clock? And because we've been in the quiet period from the Fed, meaning that we've had a lot of room for speculation from investors and the market itself. Does he come in and does everything get hit with a sledgehammer at 2:30?
So this is an actual, to jump in, it's an actual presentation. I'm looking at the board agenda.
He just said that. Yeah. It's a presentation today. Yeah. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. 2:45 today.
That's a big deal. And he confirmed it's a presentation.
I might be there today.
I want to get a second sizzle reel here from Scott, Judah Wickauer. So the expectation is 1/4 point from Powell, and we should get this one out soon because it's dated, J-Dubs. The expectation is a quarter point from Powell this afternoon, and then maybe no more. How does the market respond to that?
So I think what they're looking for, or what is expected, is going to be a hawkish pause. So that's going to be Jay Powell coming on, and they're going to have the 25 bips that we're expecting today, and they're going to say
Maybe.
we will determine our future increases based on market conditions, but we are committed to fighting inflation. So they're going to leave the next increase on the table, because if they do that, I think the market reacts as if we're entering cutting territory sooner than they probably expect to be, because I think we are in a higher for longer future. But if there's any recourse given, or they mention a future bank epidemic on the horizon, that the equities market takes off, and we see a very huge fall in mortgage rates in the short term. But I don't think they allow that to happen. I think we're in the hawkish pause is going to be the mode.
So I wanted to ask you this question and share some information for a quick discussion. So how are you predicting your rates? Are you still seeing them dropping below by the end of the year, going down? Is that still your read on the 30-year mortgage?
I do, and I think there's a couple components there. I think if we do we've had 4 major bank failures in the last 90 days. I think if that 4 were to go to 10 or 12, I think that the Fed's obligation would then be to turn the money printers back on in order to protect the greater economy, in conjunction with whatever this Mexican standoff between the president and whether or not we increase the debt limit or not, which is something that's going to happen no matter what, because we don't want to actually default on our national debt. That would create a global economic problem. So whatever happens there is a sideshow. Whatever happens here is the reality. And if we were to see multiple regional banks continue to fail, the Fed's obligation to protect that would be greater than their obligation to inflation. The money printers would turn back on, and we would see mortgage rates rapidly decline.
Tumble.
Now, the likelihood of that happening, I don't know enough to be that guy, but I would say that there's enough danger there that the market is somewhat pricing that in. So I do think that we continue to see mortgage rates decline throughout the year, and we get to a potentially, my original prediction of we put a 4 on it.
Really?
Whether it be 4.99.
He did say that.
Or we get into
the really is you're still feeling that way.
The reality is, I think
there's
that
a very specific
we're
reason
still
I'm asking you
trending in
specific.
that direction. That is, everything is in line to have that continue.
So I'm asking that for a
That's
very
it right there. That
specific
was nice.
reason, because it's a tie-in to some phone calls I got from our last couple of shows. Jerry and I did on the return on investment for renovation work, and this construction conversation we've been having. So since, what's today, Wednesday, since Monday, I've had several phone calls from folks that they're projecting that the interest rates are going to drop, and they want to do some renovation work to their houses to get them back on the market. So we've been talking about this for a while, that will the interest rates drop enough for people to put houses? I was kind of poo-pooing that whole idea, to thinking that wasn't going to move the needle. And I've reversed myself on that now. And it's not a lot, it's 4 phone calls, but it's enough to say, hey, tell me a little bit about this HVAC thing that we talked about, so forth and so on, that I want to put my house on the market and get ready for the next 60 days, or basically the fall market is what they want to get ready for, because we're thinking interest rates are going to drop and we want to jump back into the market. So I really think you're right. I think it's going to stimulate the sales end of it, definitely the buy side, but I think you're going to start seeing an uptick.
It will stimulate the listings. We will get more on market. As rates fall, people will be more committed to making that transition. But I stand by the fact that we have an enormous problem from when rates were so low
Sure.
that we've got a ton of dead inventory out there. And what
Yeah.
I mean by that is that you've got people who were low income earners who haven't had significant increases in wages,
They're gonna
or
stay put.
salary earners who purchased at the north end of their price point, so that if for them to put that house on the market, they would be making a lateral or downgrade move, so there is not incentive for them to do that.
And even if there's family changes, they're just going to suck it up and have another kid in the house that's maybe a little too
Yeah.
tight for them and all that stuff. I don't disagree with that at all. I've publicly have said I thought the 3% was going to bite us on the butt at some point, and that's what it's kind of doing at the moment. But I think if you start getting to that with a 4 in it, I think you're going to see certain amount of inventory come on the market that would not have.
You'll
if it
appreciate
stayed.
this. This is from Twitter. Proving Scott Morris correct from 2021, Charlottesville commuting patterns. Here are the commuting patterns from 2021, proving what you said was legitimate and correct. Thank you for that on Twitter, Sir Williamson. Keith, folks want you to unpack Q1 car. Give us why don't we do this? And here's a good sizzle reel for Keith.
I'm not
All
so
right.
sure I want this decision reel because I got to tell you.
It's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
At least for the next 48 hours if it just came out.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us the news bite? You know how the TV station you get 15,
Yeah.
30 seconds on this?
So to be totally honest and to everybody, to be transparent, I read it quickly and put it down because it's already old, right? And that's the reason I worked the slide number 1 up to say, okay, what happens since the end of the first quarter and the end of April? So in Albemarle County, everything goes up. I think if you read through this and one can interpret it that maybe the market is a little soft. I read it very quickly this morning for a half an hour. I didn't really get into great details in it. But I think, in fairness, I mean, they're about a month late to the game. And
Why does it come out late?
I think it's just the process that they do. It's CAR doesn't do it. It's Virginia Realtors does it. So they have to take all the data that it closes, go there, process it. We do this because we're a little bit more nimble, but we put our numbers out like within the first couple of days of April. So I think it's a great reading. It supports some of the stuff that we've been talking about for a while, but there was a bit of a hangover the first couple of months in the first quarter, and then there's been a rapid increase in the last month of the quarter and this month, and I can prove that because I just ran the volume. Just the first quarter, single-family detached, no new construction, Albemarle County, there was 145 units sold. In April alone, there was 88 sold. So there was a bit of a hangover in the first 2 months. People were kind of like, a little hangover from the end of last year, and then in the last month of the quarter started rocking. So when you take a look at it holistically in 1 month, it doesn't look all as positive as it would if you take it apart month by month. But, we do this over here pretty spot on and at real time on that end of it.
What are your thoughts on what he said, Scott? Follow up on Q1 report, folks asking about that. It's just a completely different market. I guess to look back on something in the first 90 days of the year, when here in May, it's completely different. How relevant is the report?
If I can jump in, historically, the way that it's been done, it kind of made sense, right? But this
market's too fast.
But this market's been moving this fast for a while.
Yeah, 3
right?
years.
And
3 years.
And 1 month to the next month makes a huge difference. Inventory is down, right? The volume of sales are down. We've been talking about that forever. Prices are going up. But if you kind of clamp it all together, I don't know what that report said because I didn't get too much into it. But we know like City of Charlottesville and Albemarle had a bit of a decrease in the first quarter. But now Albemarle's just shot up by 11% just in the last month.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, so we faced a volatility in rates and inventory and pricing that we haven't seen in 30, 40 years. And along with that, one of the things that we talk about is affordability. I don't know how housing has never been super affordable. I remember, having an apartment in Woodbridge in 2001, 99, 2000, and with rent at like $1,200 a month for a little 2-bedroom, and now that's probably close to $3,000. But on that was on an income of where I was probably making less than $3,000 a month at the time. So
which was 50%, almost 50% of your income.
Yeah, and which is not that is roughly what we're looking at now with wage increases, and it's not significantly different. And that was 20 years ago. So 22 years. I don't want to talk about how long it was anymore. But so
you still got the baby face, Scott.
So the volatility that we've seen, until we get some stabilization of rates, so that inventory can start to redevelop. I've talked about it being a living organism.
By redevelop, you mean come on market.
Come on market.
Yeah.
Grow. We're going to continue to see price appreciation, and we're just for the fact that we've got more bodies than we do rooftops, and that is what's continuing to drive things. And that there's not a lot of headwinds to change that. I mean, or winds at our back to change that.
To your comment, more bodies than rooftops. Carly Wagner and Albert Graves having an interaction on one of the 15 Facebook pages. Carly wrote this: housing is expensive because it's scarce. Yeah. Demand is higher than supply.
There you go.
To clarify, most of the alphabet agencies this report is about are in Albemarle County, northern Albemarle, not Seaville. And most of these folks live up in that area. Literally, there are not enough homes in the city to house all these folks.
Yeah, I mean, and when you showed me that chart from Twitter that said roughly 10,000 people inside of the county, have jobs that exist here, 35,000 of them commute in from surrounding counties, and then we've got another 10,000 that go out. And my brain was like, well, we've got 60,000 people here. How come? Well, they're not all working. So that is basically what it looks like, and that has grown over the last 20 plus years as the surrounding counties has filled up to be bedroom communities to support Charlottesville.
Well said.
And that's also part of what hinders economic development inside of those areas, because when we talked about haircuts and we talk about convenience, where are you going to, everything that you go spend your money on that is service driven is based on how easy it is for you to do it. And if it's easier for you to stop at Wegmans or Trader Joe's or Costco on your way to or from work, depending on what you've got going on, you're not going to go spend that money at Lake Monticello because you've already packed that stuff in your car because that's when you did it there. So trying to create economic growth that developers preach to the counties that's going to happen when we put more bodies there. Well, if most of the people are working somewhere else and just residing in this area, you're going to get something, but you're not going to get it all.
I see. I love when Scott's like this. I think that was a great take.
And
well thought out and succinct.
Absolutely. Lake Monticello, you bring it up as a prime example to that, right? So Food Lion out there is the number one
in the Commonwealth,
and for its size.
Yeah.
But the average checkout is less than 12.
Less than $12?
No, less than 12 items.
Oh.
Right.
The average checkout at the Lake Monticello Food Line is less than 12 items.
This is a couple months old. This is a couple months old when I was talking.
That's very interesting.
That's a fantastic
I love stuff like this.
Yeah,
baby, let's go.
So if you actually go there, you will see that. You don't see the huge baskets full of food. It's usually small items and all that stuff. So, but why is that the fastest growing? It's because it's a convenience factor, right? When I first
and it's got no competition.
Well,
it's got a captive market outside 4,500 homes, Lake Monticello, and it's got no competition.
Well, there's E.W. Thomas in Palmyra.
How far away?
It's not even how far away. It's the opposite direction where most people are driving. That's the real issue.
E.W. Thomas picks up all of Fork Union and that area.
But some number, 80%, 60%, depending on who you talk to, leaves Lake Monticello to go into Charlottesville or go into Richmond.
They go to town.
They go to town. We call it town. Sorry about that. We call it town.
I apologize. This is the stat they're talking about. Neil Williamson put this on Twitter. So if you want to see the graphic, head over to my Twitter account at Jerry Miller Now. I retweeted what Neil posted. These are commuting patterns. Neil, what's the source of this? If you can give me the source, that would be great. People who live and work in the Charlottesville area, it's under 10,000 people, about 7,500. People who commute into Charlottesville, 32,500.
I was looking at it and need some glasses from across. I said 35. It was
so
a-
are
it was
we
a glance.
calling
It was a-
People who commute out of Charlottesville for their job, out of Charlottesville, 12,000.
So are we talking about the city limits of Charlottesville? Does it include the urban ring? Is it?
Great question for Neil. He sent that graphic. I would love to know that.
Yeah,
Convenient
so,
comments.
because we say Charlottesville, that's more than just the city of Charlottesville.
Yeah, that's right. That's
right.
Albemarle. That's Forest Lakes. That's where.
Yeah, we just talked about Ninjik. That's technically in
Yeah.
Albemarle County, right? But do we call that Charlottesville, or is that because when you have conversations with
Yes,
clients,
I think when
we
when someone is looking at where they're going to live, move, whatever, if they're considering green but they're working at Injik or Jim Price Chevrolet or one of the dealerships in that road, they're calling that Charlottesville when it's Albemarle County.
does he have Fluvanna County in there?
I would love the commuting patterns for Fluvanna County.
Yeah, which is
Neil.
cute. So
we could talk about it.
Yeah, and particularly Lake Monticello, because I threw his number around. I just want to make sure I got it right. That how many people actually move out of Fluvanna County into Charlottesville. He may not have broken that down. I can tell you this much: there's a new roundabout in there that has 18,000 cars a day go through that. That count I know verbatim. So they're going somewhere. Outside of Lake Monticello. But back to the Food Lion thing, that's what happens. People do their bulk shopping
That was a great stat.
in that. But like for me, when I first moved to Lake Monticello in 1987, you had to go to Charlottesville to get gas and milk. Right, there was a couple of places you could go to EW.
Outside the main gate,
There
you
was
had
one
that little
outside the main
Citgo.
gate, and that was that was just it. Because back in '87, actually, that wasn't even there.
Yeah.
So you had to go to Palmyra, because the Amico station
Yeah.
in Palmyra, or go to E.W. Thomas in 1987, or go to Charlottesville.
Hey, and that station was like, they came in and pumped your gas for you.
They
at
still do
one.
that, by the way.
Oh, really?
Mom,
great.
My mom goes there because she refuses to pump gas. So she literally goes there because
I love
some
your
guy
mom.
goes out and pump. Dad's, by the way, keep thumbs. Dad's under the knife today. My
Shoulder?
pop getting
Yeah.
his shoulder replaced.
Pop, we love you.
Thoughts to Lenny?
Thoughts? Carly says you've been spot on all show. Scott Morris.
There you go.
Thank you.
Kevin says this: take a notice of the lake inventory at the Food Lion and walk through any other Food Lion and see how many products are not there. What does that mean?
Oh, that's very interesting.
He used
comment.
to live at Lake Monticello, didn't he?
Yeah, that is very interesting comment. So if I'm going to interpret it or unpack it to use your terminology, there's things you can buy at the Lake Monticello Food Line that you can't buy in the Charlottesville Food Line.
Like what?
Certain kind of gourmet foods and different quality foods. There's a larger organic section.
Why is that?
It's because it's buying patterns. It's what
What the lake's buying.
that's
Yeah.
how this works, right? So it's interesting. Yona likes to eat pretzels that don't have salt on them, just so that you know.
She likes pretzels with no salt?
No salt on
Do
them.
they have taste?
They taste like pretzels with no salt.
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
I love Yona, but pretzels
But
with no salt, do they
to
have
this
taste?
point, try to find pretzels in a store that don't have salt on them.
Because there's a reason for that.
Well, they make them. There is.
There is.
Utz makes a thing. I'm making a point here, Mr. Miller.
So does she buy so many pretzels at Lake Monticello Food Line that they're
No,
stocked
I
for
went to the
Sola?
general manager and said, "Hey, is this something you guys can stock?" And they did. So I buy these pretzels for my wife. But so many other people must be buying them because every time I go in there, there's pretzels there without any salt on them.
There you go.
So what happens
Trend
is,
Center, Yona.
well, what happens is that hole when you plug in your little code number thingy, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
It's all about your buying patterns and how they stock it. But he's 100% right. You can get things there that you probably wouldn't get at a different food line.
Let me ask you this question. So this is a conversation that's being had on multiple Facebook pages here. Bill McChesney is now jumping into the fray as well about the impact of defense in the area. And there's some concern that this impact is not a true reflection of what it is because folks aren't living necessarily in the area. I would love to clarify what the Charlottesville region is. Would you include Culpeper in the Charlottesville region?
No.
No, I
Would
wouldn't.
you include Madison in the Culpeper region? The Charlottesville area.
Tell me what the population of, like, isn't Madison like, they're kind of like they're like your food desert of real estate in between, and I don't mean that in like a derogatory way.
Be under 20,000.
Yeah,
I'll find it right now. Madison County, Virginia population. Okay,
So a better way-
Madison's 14,000.
Yeah, so under 20. So
What's the Charlottesville area? So the comments that are being had here, and I get it, are like some of these folks that are working for the Alphabets are commuting as far as an hour away. So how can this Weldon Cooper Center study say it's 1.2 billion for the Charlottesville area?
So,
Multiple folks are saying that.
but UVA is the same thing. People
Yeah,
drive an
UVA
hour and a
is the
half.
same thing.
So I think the question is, okay, what's the driving radius from around?
That could be the question.
if
That's
you
the
know
question.
it also
And the problem is that, excuse me, Scott, that rubber band
As expanded.
has expanded.
It goes to this: you're going to have if you're paying somebody $200,000 a year, and you've got a couple of those guys, and they don't want to live here because they already have
A dope pack.
somewhere in
Wherever.
let's say north of Culpeper, because they started out in Northern Virginia and then they ended up here, and there's still some of their money is going to get spent in the area, I think it just goes back to the UVA thing. Like, depending on how much and what they need, people will make the commute.
Here's a great
Are
question.
all 7,347 people living in Charlottesville? No, but the economic impact from them being here, and the majority of them being here, let's say it's 80% of them are in the area. I think that I think it's very significant.
So we should tag Trevor. And the only reason
let me. I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak for you. The gentleman that I interact with, I know appreciates his anonymity.
Roger, got
Okay.
it. So
Deep throat here? Or?
No.
no,
that's not. He's not. deep throat.
got it.
He's not.
So we can make some phone calls, at least I can, and know this information for Friday. Say, okay, tell me in your shop how many people are driving an hour and a half away that you know. It's informal. It's not scientific, but I think the distance of driving is the question, right? And as the market gets tighter, inventory gets tighter, right? Prices go up. That driving is going to go further. Who was it? Quentin Beckham. Was it Quentin Beckham that said we're going to fly? Do we
Yeah,
qualify?
fly to qualify.
Qualify now. And to Scott's point, as the salaries go up, right? They might be okay with that drive. We had somebody chime in, I think on Monday, that moved on the other side of the mountain as a teacher.
As a
and
teacher.
that traveling is eating in, it's becoming costly for them. If I'm on the other side of the
Teaches
mountain.
Charlottesville City Schools, live in Augusta County. I think he's living in Waynesboro.
Isn't that's like the bell I'm ringing here? Yes,
Yeah.
that's the point.
The teacher did indicate, though, and I'm not going to say, I'll just say Charlottesville City Schools, that it's pretty difficult to make it in this scenario because of the cost of
exactly right.
gas.
That's
that
exactly
he is pretty much paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
So with that said, if he was living here,
He would be underwater. He would be underwater if he was living here. And he acknowledged that.
Well, you
But
would.
it's to the point, though, that a UVA degree, elementary teacher, decade and change in the business,
Ain't making
living
enough.
in Waynesboro, is paycheck to paycheck.
So I'll leave the elected official's name out of it and the jurisdiction out of it. But I had this very conversation yesterday with one, and you know what their answer was? Well, just get somebody else, to marry somebody with or partner up with somebody who's making the same amount of money.
They didn't say that.
I swear to God, that's what was told.
What did you say?
because you have no, yeah, of course they did. They're out of touch. They don't give a shit. That is
What did you say to that?
I gotta get the angry elf thing.
That's not angry elf. That's not angry elf. You're the one talking to someone in this position, and that's the position that they
Well,
take.
so that's a lack of. Let's say
They
that's.
could get,
These are your elected officials, folks.
you're able to
Just
potentially
marry
get
somebody and
a
find more
roommate.
money.
It was the comment was that they need to get somebody else to live with them so they can afford to do it. So basically, you got to get married, in order to afford a home, because now your salary's doubled, let's call it $100,000, and now you can afford it in this particular rural.
So there's something that I tell someone when they come to me and they've done the work to get qualified to purchase a home, and they're super income limited, and I use it in a much softer way, and say, look, here's your situation.
There was nothing soft about this, by the way.
But I'll, and joke around, like they're like, well, how do I make this work? And these are typically people who do not have a higher education degree who are trying to do this, and it's like, well, and these are typically young individuals also, so they get the joke here. And where I'm going with it is, make sure on that Tinder bio must mortgage qualify in there. Don't let some dude come in here ruining your life.
Is dating in 2023 now just? Are we?
Hey, you want to buy a house?
Is it not just personality? Is it not just your hobbies, your interests, and your looks? Is it now your credit score and how much money you have for a down payment?
That's a question for the feed.
Is that now what dating in 2023 has turned into? Are Gen Zers saying, all right, I don't care what your hobbies are, I don't care what you look like, I don't care what you're like in the
We need
sack.
to buy a house.
All we need is a good credit score and some money down.
So, in
That would be crazy if that
every
was the
joke,
case.
there's a little bit of what? A little bit of truth in every,
yeah.
in every joke.
Obviously, we're joking.
But I wrote this down. I just don't know if this is cyclical or not for us, but the last half a dozen listings that we have were all divorces.
Because they couldn't afford to stay in the home. Or it was a life change.
We don't.
The house was part of the settlement.
We don't
want to get into those details.
We don't get into the details, but I will tell you, of the last half a dozen listings that we've had, we're sitting down at a table with a partners who are or divorcing, and now we got to figure out what to do with the home, right? For them.
Sounds like it's selling.
Well,
Hammer Helmer giving Scott props. That's a great name right there.
so that's interesting. I'm wondering if part of that joke, right, is people are doing this just to buy a house, and then all of a sudden it doesn't kind of work out, and they're trying to. I don't know, but it's weird. 6 of the last listings we got were all divorces.
Jennifer Carini, no joke. This was a conversation on a second date that I had at Fitzroy on the downtown mall.
I love it.
We legitimately asked about down payment and credit scores because we're each trying to buy a house.
Yeah,
Boom.
well, there
Tinder
you
bio must mortgage qualify.
How old are you, Jennifer, if you don't mind me asking? By your profile, I would estimate that you are in your 20s. That was a fantastic comment. Thank you for commenting today.
Well, in every joke, there's a whole bunch of truth.
I'm a single income family, but live in beautiful Crozet. I have to work 2 jobs, 60 to 70 hours a week to make it real life.
Yeah.
This is from AG watching the program.
AG, how much of your salary, percentage-wise, goes to your housing costs? I bet you it's over 50%.
Albert, is half your income going to housing? You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Completely your call.
I
lives in Crozet.
I asked the question for a reason. Is that they're working 2 jobs to afford it, and it's much more than.
I've been having this conversation with Judah Wickhauer, director of this Fine and Fair talk show, has it been 6 months now? Central Virginia and the Charlottesville area is a 65-hour work week. It's a 65-hour work week town. A lot of people don't want to hear that.
Yeah, but we do that just because of the.
Oh, I mean, we're also owners. So Judah says you own the business. You work those hours because you own the business. You own the business, you own the business. We work those hours because we own the business. This is from Carly. It's a harsh reality, though. The single income family has become a privilege. It is undoubtedly challenging. Jamie says the best food line I've ever been to is the Lake Anna one. He also said the same thing about the Gordonsville Food Lion. They have way more than the town of Orange Food Lion. So it's on
Food
volume.
Lion is to me like one of the most interesting grocery stores. It's the variation that you get from one to another.
Well, I'll put it really in perspective because I used to live in Redfields. The Food Lion on 5th Street Extended caters to a Hispanic clientele. So the Hispanic offering is one of the best I've ever seen at the Food Lion on 5th Street. But the Food Lion on Avon, which is in the same spot, a road right over parallel to it,
Very different.
is catering to Mill Creek and Lake Renovia, the $500,000 neighborhoods. And that $500,000 neighborhood has an appetite from food that's very difficult, very different than the Hispanic buying on Fifth Street. So they're completely different foods. It's completely different. And interestingly as well, and this is a conversation for another day, the Food Lion on Fifth Street is the only Food Lion I've ever seen where an armed guard stands at the door every single night. Like literally a man with a gun is standing at the door.
And they
lock one entrance, so there's only one
They lock one
open.
entrance, and
Yeah.
that place has been through, and
A lot.
variations. It's that talk about a life cycle. That whole little shopping center right there, before Fifth Street Station was there, and you had the Hardee's, and that side of town was just different.
It used to be Shades. It
Yeah.
used to be shady. It's been gentrified completely. Albert Graves says, Keith Smith, 55% of my income goes to housing.
Thank you for sharing, please. Thank
55%.
you for sharing. It's an important number for folks to
We
understand.
work 70 hours a week.
And I'm sure, that's the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, plus, your utilities and all that stuff gets lumped into that number. And I bet I'm not sure what's included in that 55, but it may be a little stronger than that if you start lumping in the rest of what you need as far as utilities and so forth and so on. But 55%, it's supposed, if you pull up.
Well, I think that number's dated now. The third of your income should be, I know chemistry, we spend so much time there. I think that number's dated. Like the number where it used to be 7 years for people staying in a house is now 10.
And if you read the NAR data, people are saying they're going to stay
Longer.
much
Because
longer.
they have to because of cost.
Much
Yeah.
longer than that, which is going to have a hearing aid popping out here.
Don't you think the third number is now dated as well?
Well, that's our chemistry's work, because that's the point I was going to make, is that I think HUD needs to start using a different ratio, because I don't know. I mean, you know this. You do this every day.
Yeah, this is his job. I know, Scott.
Hello, duh. Duh.
Scott's like,
Scott's going. How about me,
Scott
guys?
says, I know the financials of everybody. Go ahead, Scott.
I forgot he was here. I was at the chemistry.
So
with you.
I would say the number of people that qualify and purchase at greater than 45% is probably 80% or better of
there you
my
go.
business.
There it is.
So to your
There it
point,
is.
that number should change.
That
And I
number
would
should
say,
change.
and the number that it qualifies over 50%, between 50 and 60, depending on loan program, is somewhere in the range of 30% of what I do.
But that's only the PITI, right? You're not taking into consideration utilities.
Electric, yeah.
Right?
is
HOA,
good stuff from Scotty.
HOA cost, and that number I bet you is higher.
HOA is included.
HOA's included? Got it. But,
What's the number that it gets to the point where it's impossible to do the deal?
So any FHA, anything over 56.99. VA has some leeway there depending on what residual income looks like, and that, I've got approvals as high as 65, 70%. Then you got investors who've actually got to agree to buy at that point. So typically around 60% is your cutoff VA. But to that point, 93% of all VA buyers have average credit score of 735 or higher with an income of $85,000 or greater, and close at a rate of 97% versus 98% on conventional loans. So the product itself, the borrower, the strength of
Very
buyer, very, very high in difference to how many agents perceive the product itself at zero down, and they look at it as having additional appraisal problems and impacts, when really you've got more rubber band room, meaning that, if this came back this way, what do the actual comps look back? Can we go for a reconsideration of value? Your Tidewater's enacted so that we know if we have a problem, we can actually reach out, gather all of our data. We've got 48 hours to attack the problem. It's such a great product for the people who qualify for it, and it's people who truly earn the option to get in with no money down and own a home. And with Injic being here in our circle, we've got a huge platform for those buyers as well.
I love that you're a champion of that. He's a veteran himself, Scotty Moe. You are 100% on point today. The insight you just provided valuable. Jamie says it's funny, but my friends and I joke about dual income, no kids being a life hack early on, and they
Dinks.
actually haven't.
Dinks.
Yeah. You knew about the dinks?
I know about the
Yeah,
dinks,
I didn't know
baby.
about the dinks. Scott in the know right there. The acronym is DINKS. Dual income, no kids. It's an early life hack in this competitive real estate market. Did you hear that, Keith? Dual income, no kids. A life hack for today's
Where was that in
market.
1988?
We didn't need it.
This has been a thing
Jon
since
and I
like
both always
since the '90s. Dinks has been like an acronym that's been around for a minute.
DINKS acronym. This from, I'm going to butcher your last name. Is it Bobby Lou? I think it's right. Bobby says this. He goes, so you're telling me I have to marry someone, I have to have nearly a perfect credit score, I have to have 6 figures down, and I have to pick a house that I may not like. That's the Central Virginia real estate market.
I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying if you got all of the things, you're going to get a better house.
And you don't have to get married. Right? You don't have to get
You
married.
don't have to get married. You don't have to be yet. But
Are people gonna be buying houses now? Are people gonna be getting married to buy houses? Are we gonna see marriages?
I mean, it's that's like the so people get married to move out of the barracks in the Marine Corps. So no,
You really think that's it? I think it's other reasons.
Well, yeah, that is, and especially now, and or especially in the old school environment, pre-cell phones, where they couldn't be like, "Hey, see you in 15 minutes." I think that we've.
Give me 5, brother.
Scott's on today, dude. He's on
you're doing
point
great
today,
man.
I think that we've
carried the show today.
long been in an environment where having dual incomes got you an easier lifestyle.
That's how we did it.
100%.
And we just, and when I talked about 20 years ago, housing affordability in Northern Virginia, being a concern, is equal. It's housing has never been affordable. When we talk, we beat up when. I do hate the boomer take on, 18% was an interest rate. It's like, cool, the house was $40,000.
I know.
But at the same time,
This is where Keith says my house was $110,000.
Okay.
And that was a lot then.
It was more than 125.
Okay.
125. Sorry, Keith.
but your average
18%.
You're left-handed, Keith.
I'm left-handed.
You're-
18%. That's this hand, by the way.
your
I love
Left-handed.
your average income at the same time was significantly lower as well. And
had to work.
my
You had to
point being there is it wasn't affordable then either. You just traded one thing for the
The
other.
only way we were able to make it work, to be perfectly honest with you, was I had my parents living close to me because we couldn't afford
The daycare.
Daycare.
Yeah.
How much? That's such a huge
We
problem
couldn't
now.
afford
That is
daycare.
something that everyone faces, and the cost per kid is insane.
And I used to
Astronomical.
bring the kids with me to the job sites all the time.
So what we frequently
That's how
see
they learned how to
is
curse and
when we
spit.
talk into
great.
I've met your oldest.
what we frequently see
true.
is
But they can operate equipment.
you've got a parent
Better than him, by the way.
who's in some sort of flexible work environment, who's trying to work and stay home with the kids, or they're trying to come up with some creative way for daycare, or you've got two people working and one person's job is basically just supporting the child care anyways.
I mean, that's where we were with my wife and I. Like my wife, if she was going to go in the workforce, that would be paying for
Yeah, sure.
childcare. So at that point, we're like, why don't we have the lady that loves our kids more than anyone with them
Well, tag.
instead of doing the childcare?
So tag Harry Tyson. What was the number? 4,000. I remember he told us at one time they're paying $4,000 a month for daycare for 2 kids.
Harry Tyson, are you watching? Jump in here. That's
I believe the number was 4,000.
50
No, it's
Gs,
up in Connecticut.
48K a year.
Yeah, that's just daycare for 2 kids.
I mean, that's astronomical, right? there.
And one parent is working to support that, and the other parent is working to support the household expenses. But look, to Scott's point, and
This is a question that's come in for Scott. How much easier is your job with getting people financing when it is dual income? How much does alleviating the risk of a loss of a job of one person help with you with approvals?
So it's not about.
It's a good question.
It's not about the risk of job loss, because when we do a verification of employment, is your employer replies that your employment is likely to continue. That's really all that matters. What makes it easier is with two incomes, assuming that the people with two incomes are trying to buy the same house as the human with one income, that they're going to have, depending upon student loans, credit cards, and auto, a lower debt-to-income ratio, so that makes it easier for them. It's not showing the ability to repay, and that is the burden on anyone trying to buy a home, is showing that I'm making this much money and that money is likely to continue. Showing the ability to repay is the most important part. So
Plus the appraised value.
Well, and the appraised value of the home, certainly there's other factors, but that is the most important factor.
Scott, you're on point today, dude.
Well, that goes
Seriously.
back to the divorce conversation, right? Because I had a conversation with a previous client we helped that they had a divorce. We sold the house. We helped them buy two things. And I was having a conversation with them yesterday, and he goes, I can't understand. When we were married, had two incomes, we could afford taking care of the kids and whatever we're doing. Now we're split, we can't. And then I said, well, how much you paying in your mortgage? And then we found out the housing costs split apart was what was driving them down from their cash flow. But yeah, it's a funny thing, man. Dual incomes or dual
Dinks.
dinks.
Dual income, no kids. Dinks. Carly, my boss says if you can afford daycare early on in your career, college should be easy to afford late in your career, unless you really mess up in life.
Well,
No joke, our family daycare and our private elementary school is the same, if not more, than the cost of college.
And it's always, to Scott's point, it's always been tough. This is why you need trusted advisors. That's why you need somebody like Scott or anybody on
Scotty
the
Mo.
partners tab over at Real Talk with Keith Smith to help you sit down at that kitchen table and kind of come up with a game plan. I still wholeheartedly believe this is not. This is difficult, but get into the game, get into the ownership, even if it's not the perfect location, the perfect house, the perfect features, the perfect condition. You're going to start building equity, and then you can start kind of getting that cash flow going in the right direction, so that maybe you're not at 50%. It's going to suck for the first couple of years. It did for us, right?
You ever heard the thing
we never
where
went on a vacation
the
for
lady
years.
walks up to the guy smoking cigarettes, and she goes, how long you been doing that? And he says, 20 years. And she goes, well, how much do they cost you a day?
I do this
They're
with Judah
about,
once a
They're
month.
about $5 a pack.
Wait for it.
And she goes, well, and she does the math in her head. She goes, well, if you wouldn't spend your money on that, you could have bought a Ferrari. And he goes, yeah, well, where's your effing Ferrari? And the longer
didn't
that
say
you
Ferrari.
wait to get into the real estate game, and the longer that you stay renting, those additional monies will likely be spent on things other than the wealth growth that you'll establish by being in the home. So the likelihood for you to then, you can't sell your apartment that you don't own, take the profits and roll it into the next house.
just spending
So
money.
the sooner that you begin, that is the better off that you're going to be. So when someone asks you why you haven't done this, you can show them the progress that you've made. The house is your Ferrari.
There you go. That
And-
was great.
And that Ferrari's
That's great.
never going to make you money, but that house will make you money.
Well,
Wow.
yeah. I
Ferrari
mean,
could
if
make
you
you
buy
money.
it at the right
Yeah, it
price,
depends on the
vintage,
Ferrari.
keep the miles off of it,
And you take care
garage
of it.
cap.
The Ferrari
Those
probably would make
80s
you money.
Welltel Porsches are crushing it right now.
That's the second time you brought that car up.
I love that car.
Come on, man. You've been doing well. Buy yourself that car.
Nah, pass.
What's
What
the
a-
cost on that car? Is
Not
it
as
quarter?
much as losing my driver's license, and I don't have time to track it or play golf or go fishing or do any of the other stuff that I like to do. Why am I going to buy the
You
car?
never think you'll buy that car?
No.
Was that? Is that a quarter mil?
I don't. I mean, I could probably get something in the
Two?
$40,000 to $60,000 range, depending on what exactly that you're
I'll tell you, I
looking
wish
to
I
do.
never got rid of my 1969 Camaro
You
SS, though.
mentioned that.
I wish I never got rid of that.
Hindsight's 2020. But you in that car, though, you're alive.
I'm
You're
alive.
alive.
I'm alive.
How about some closing thoughts? Sarah Hill Buczynski watching the program. She says, "Did you see the NAR report this week? homeowners gain $100,000 in wealth
That's right.
over the last decade versus renters.
That's exactly right.
There you go. There's your Ferrari.
Well,
There's your Ferrari.
there's your sending
Sarah, we
kids
love
to
when you watch the show.
college.
Yeah.
There's your taking your wife out for a 25-year wedding anniversary trip around the world.
Well,
that's
all right,
where
let's
your
qualify
wealth-
that.
Yeah, please.
That in that equity that they've gained, the only way to do those things
That's
with
paper
them
money.
is to
Refi.
get
HELOC.
to take a cash out,
who
increase
do they
your
call for that?
balance.
Who do they-
That's me.
Right.
Solve some of your debt problems, but
I was trying to throw him a bone
it's
here.
just
didn't-
it's
That's
just
so matter
you
of
know
fact.
it's just on the table until then.
Oh, that was so matter
this,
of fact.
this was me trying to toss one to you,
I
buddy.
I appreciate yes. And if you are someone who's gotten yourself into any kind of debt position that you need
Oh,
to
yeah.
take that equity off the table, let's solve the problem before it becomes a bigger problem. Because at that point, it may be more difficult to actually execute. And we
State of
can-
Virginia,
yeah.
31 days late. You just lost all your rights.
There you
So-
go. That's this show was great. It was genuinely a pleasure to host the show. Scott Morris, Ross Mortgage. I'll say it again, Scott Morris and Ross Mortgage. Call Scott, his team, A-plus people. Keith Smith helps people buy and sell houses. He's
Believe
a
it or
realtor.
not, believe it or not. Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I do
Realty
for a living.
Partners. So if you need a realtor and you need a loan officer, this is the team right here. Friday,
Just me
Batman
you.
and Robin?
It's Batman and Robin. We're going to have a lot of fun. Don't know what we're going to talk about yet. So if anybody wants a topic,
I mean,
or
the NAR report would be great.
the,
Yeah.
the NAR report, I've already referenced to, but that's a good one to bring back up. How about this? Anybody want headgear to be worn on Friday? Tell us what to do. Maybe we'll go out.
Props.
Props. Any prop ideas? Throw them our way.
Keith's prop closet is
Growing.
synonymous with I don't know who has a lot of props. Lizzo.
I don't know. It's growing. It's
Lizzo's
behind.
got a lot of props.
It's growing.
Keith's got a lot of props. All right, Judah, Keith, Scott, Jerry. Real Talk with Keith Smith, presented by Ross Mortgage. I Love Seagull Show. 59 minutes. Take care, guys. Well done, boys. That was fun.
Yeah, have a good time as always.
Very well done.
Scott, give me a high five, brother.
Yeah, Scott, you're